Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Shadowed City podcast. I am your host, Larry, and this is IWA Warroom.
And I'm going to review some shows. Haven't done it in a while, and we are going to go all the way back to the draft. If y'all missed it, go check it out. It was a hell of a show, and we got more stuff happening. We got the Jay Briscoe Cup happening, which we'll get to. Stay tuned for that. And who knows who will show up. That was weird. We're going to start off with the draft, like I said. So at the IWA draft, this was the first time ever in EFED history that matches were happening, but draft picks were being made before matches and after, which was very epic. And to kick us off, it was for the IWA Rising Talent Championship, which was held on a fatal four-way tag championships, to be exact. Hustle and Money versus Flight Risk versus the Wild Cards versus the Demonic Brothers, with the Wild Cards walking out the champions. Dante Maddox versus Jack Graves, with Jack Graves walking out victorious. Extreme Championship of the North. OG Bishop Freeman versus the champion Wildman, where Wildman retained the gold. Gauntlet Eliminator for the IWA Cruiserweight Championship. Deuce Ricky Souza versus Flash versus Severus Crowley versus Carino versus One Tyson Storm versus Deuce Sparks versus the Savage John Rock versus the King of Chaos, Wes Grimm, where Deuce Sparks walked out the new champion. Welcome, diehard Hunter Ellis. Hope you are well, brother. Eating some hamburger helper. Good stuff. What are you guys eating on or drinking on? Deuce Sparks became the new champion. IWA Rising Talent Championship for the ladies. Raven Grimm versus Jackie Tyson, the champion, versus Tiffany Nevins versus War Maiden, with Tiffany Nevins walking out the new champion. Leo Blade and Brick Savage versus Daryl Williams and VJ, where VJ and Daryl Williams walked out victorious. 8-man battle royal, where the winner would get drafted to Vertigo. Dex Michaels versus Sinister versus Crazy 8 versus Blade versus Bloodstone versus the Reaper Scott Stevenson versus the Unhinged Clown Saturn versus Wildside, with Saturn walking out victorious. Next matchup. Special guest referee, Blind Man, with Mighty versus Chambers, with Chambers walking out victorious. IWA US Championship submission. Mike Howard versus the champion KD, where KD retained, but after the match, Mike Howard did a heel turn. And in the main event, MG versus Ranger Rogue, with Ranger Rogue walking away victorious. Brutal Strong Style tournament won, and they were all held under the underground rules for the tournament. So I'll go for the non-tournament matches first. Jordan Sparks versus Deuce Sparks, with Jordan Sparks walking out victorious. Bad and Bougie, Jackie Tyson and Chanel Baltimore versus Las Madrinas, Diana Martinez and Mercedes Martinez, where Las Madrinas walked out victorious. Blade versus Logan Slater, with Blade walking out victorious. Raven Grimm versus Ming Lee versus Britt Monet, with Ming Lee walking out victorious. Mei Kobayashi versus Quinn Kushida, with Quinn Kushida walking out victorious. For the Do or Die Championship, Mighty versus the champion Sinister, with Sinister walking away victorious, retaining. Now for the tournament matches, held all under underground rules. SSR versus Ranger Rogue, with Ranger Rogue walking out victorious. King Khan versus Dex Michaels, with King Khan walking out victorious. The Reaper Scott Stevenson versus Alexander the Judge, with the Reaper Scott Stevenson walking out victorious. OG Bishop Freeman versus Isaiah Ortiz, with Isaiah Ortiz walking out victorious. Ranger Rogue versus King Khan, with King Khan walking out victorious. The Reaper Scott Stevenson versus Isaiah Ortiz, with the Reaper Scott Stevenson walking out victorious. Ranger Rogue versus the Reaper Scott Stevenson, with King Khan. With King Khan versus Scott Stevenson, the Reaper, with King Khan walking out victorious. On the next show for the IWA Prestige Championship, Tony Rose versus the champion Harnage Grimm, with Tony Rose walking out the new champion. Underground Brutal Strong Style Championship, King Khan versus Jack Graves, with Jack Graves walking out the new champion. Ladder Money in the Bank match, Big Lou versus Big Bad Baby Daddy versus Fuck Norris versus Daryl Williams versus the King of Chaos Wes Grimm versus Leo Blade versus Mike Howard versus Leon B. Platinum. With Mike Howard walking out victorious. Now for the IWA pop-up show. Rusty Steele and Chaotic versus Psychosis X and Miles Logan, with Psychosis X and Miles Logan walking out victorious. Athena versus Darcia, with Darcia walking out victorious. Extreme Rules Raven Grimm versus May Sotoro? Sotoro? I hope I'm saying that right. With Raven Grimm walking out victorious. Extreme Rules Windy City Championship OG Bishop Freeman versus the champion Wildside, or Wildside retain the gold. Dex Michaels versus MG, with MG walking out victorious. Ranger Rogue versus Mike Howard, with Ranger Rogue walking out victorious. Mighty versus Jack Graves, with Jack Graves walking out victorious. SSR versus Harnage Grimm, with Sir Scott Ryan, SSR walking out victorious. KD versus Leo Blade, with KD walking out victorious. And in the main event, Las Madrinas, Mercedes Martinez and Diana Martinez versus Kinsey Page and Kylie Alexa Page, where Kinsey Page and Kylie Alexa Page walked out victorious. Jay Briscoe Memorial Cup Side A. I'm going to start with the non-tournament matches. CB Money versus Ranger Rogue, with CB Money walking out victorious. No Holds Barred, KD versus Ivy Lowe, with Ivy Lowe walking out victorious. IWA Rising Talent Championship, Tori versus Ming Lee versus Tay Hardoka versus the champion Tiffany Nevins, with Tay Hardoka walking out the new champion. Wildman versus Noah Blackwell, with Wildman walking out victorious. 3 Stages of Hell. First match normal, second Inferno, and if necessary, third I Quit match between Dex Michaels and MG. MG won the normal match, and then MG won the Inferno match. No need for the third match, for MG won the whole thing. Now for the tournament matches, the Memorial Cup tournament matches. Flight Risk, Carter Haas and Aiden Adams versus Furia Herrera. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Psychosis X and Miles Logan. Where Furia Area, Miles Logan, and Psychosis X walked out victorious. Novak and Amen versus Standard, Tucker Watson, Pierre Stone, with the Standard walking out victorious. Wildcards, Otto Mega and Riley the Dragon versus Berserkers, and Wildside and Goliath, with the Wildcards walking out victorious. And now for the Red Army, Bishop Leon Platinum and Klaus Kruger took on Daryl Williams and Jay Johnson, where Williams and Johnson walked out victorious. Welcome Scar is up in this house. How are you, sir? How are you? Also, he'll be having his show hopefully up here soon. Would love to see that when it goes down. What now for IWA Jay Briscoe Memorial Cup Side B? I will also start with the non-tournament matches. Extreme Rules Amen versus Logan Slater, with Logan Slater walking out victorious. IWA King of the E-Feds Championship Mighty versus the champion KD, where KD walked out victorious, retaining. And it looked like Mighty was upset because he punched him after. IWA Queen of the E-Feds Championship Jackie Tyson versus the champion Angelina, with Angelina retaining the gold. Deuce Sparks versus Zach Cotrill, with Deuce Sparks walking out victorious. OG Bishop Freeman versus Mike Howard, with Bishop Freeman walking out victorious. Tai Hardoka versus Quinn Kushida, with Quinn Kushida walking out victorious. Now for the tournament matches. Now, between these teams, Alpha Pressure, Darkside, whichever team won would be entered into the tournament. Ooh, War Maiden and Demon are getting an update. I can't wait to see it. They're always scary, man. Always. Welcome, wrestling referee Nick Connors. Hope you are well, sir. Alpha Pressure, Rusty Steel and Chaotic versus the Dark Side, Truth and Havoc, where Dark Side walked out victorious, entering themselves into the Jay Briscoe Memorial Cup. 80 proof, BBBD, Big Bad Baby Daddy, and Jordan Sparks versus the Demonic Brothers, Monster and Demon, where 80 proof walked out victorious. Joker and Saturn versus the Eighth Day, the Reaper Scott Stevenson and Johnny Ewing, with the Eighth Day walked out victorious. Dark Side, Truth and Havoc versus the Beast, Jay Lapacita and JDB, where the Beasts walked out victorious. And then the last matchup on here, Red Wolves, Blade and Jack Graves versus Homeless Dave and Bly Man of the Mysterious Munchie Mafia, where the Red Wolves walked out victorious. And the next tournament matches will be the Beasts, versus the Standard, the Reason versus the Eighth Day, Williams and Johnson versus Wild Cards, and finally, Red Bulls versus 80 Proof. Stay tuned for that, everybody. And that's what I need to go over for IWA. Stay tuned for more, y'all. Stay tuned for the next part of the tournament. Also, I got an interview with Ruby, who is a pro wrestling announcer on the Northeast. Stay tuned for that tomorrow. But I do hope everybody has a great day. Good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever y'all may be. Peace out.